Exploragonians. Wow, you went really low there. That's nice.
Exploragonians. Yeah, go.
Exploragonians.
Oh, I guess I could have like kept the beat
No,
going.
there's absolutely no. You're dancing.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, welcome back.
To what? What is this?
This is Exploragonians, a travel stories podcast. I'm Katie.
I'm Jordan. A
And
co-host.
we're all co-hosting,
Yeah.
coasting,
Yeah.
coasting.
Man. Wow. So, Katie, what do you do when you keep winning Hamilton tickets?
Okay, number one, you kept applying.
Oh,
Okay, so let's break it down. Hamilton Lottery
right.
is,
Legit.
but it's just an app, right? It's just Hamilton Lottery.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's probably also a website, a .com, if you will, because it was used to kind of offset like the scalpers, people who didn't have access to these tickets, because when Hamilton first opened, obviously it became this like global sensation. And so we experienced this the first time we went to New York City in 2017, and the show had already been open for 2 years at that point, and tickets were still like $400 a piece for not great seats. And so what they did instead is the producers of Hamilton were like, hey, you know, we're going to set aside X amount of tickets every show. And I think the number is like 46, something like that. But what it is when you go to the Richard Rodgers Theater, where it's performing on Broadway, they pretty much block off the first 2 rows in Broadway for those lottery winners. Because when you win the Hamilton lottery, you have about 2 hours to decide if you're going to buy them. And each ticket costs $10.
A Hamilton. It's pretty good.
So we would apply when we were in New York City, but
In 2017,
we didn't win.
we didn't win.
We didn't win once.
Okay, but apparently Jordan just kept applying.
No, I didn't.
Applying?
I didn't apply
Playing?
again. I didn't apply again until we found out it was coming to Oregon, and then it was like, well, I guess I could
Oh.
apply for this. And then I won for Eugene, Oregon, but it was the first day of the outdoor school program we volunteer with.
I remember sitting outside. We were so excited to find out, like, finally won. We're like, oh, should we go and should we buy them? And we bought them, and we felt like we were gonna make it happen, and then
Then we didn't.
we couldn't make it happen.
We could have, but see, what would have happened was because it was the first day of outdoor school, we would have had to have left the program mid-afternoon.
Like, as soon as everybody got there, all the kids, and it was like a crucial point in the program, and it wasn't just, an hour away. It would have been
2.5 hours away.
one way.
Yeah.
I was like, at least.
And then to go sit in a theater for 3 hours, and then to drive back an extra 2.5 hours.
Right, and then to have a full week of, like, minimal sleep and, like, high energy.
Yeah.
It just felt like maybe not the right time. So we didn't do that. And then apparently Jordan kept applying for
All of them.
the lotteries.
I wanted to make up for lost time. I was so upset that we had given up this opportunity. And so there are 3 different tours happening of Hamilton right now, plus the permanent for now, New York City Broadway performance. So there's like 4 different opportunities. And so when the lottery opens, they'll do a block of tickets for like the next week or something like that.
Maybe like 2 weeks. Because
Yeah, 10 days maybe.
Jordan won again.
But I won again. I didn't win again until January. And then what happened was, over the course of like 2 weeks, I kept winning Hamilton lotteries. It was insane. I should have just started entering real lotteries. So I won for Cleveland, bought them immediately, and then proceeded to stress myself out
Jordan had a cold.
because I stressed myself out.
And then
we
I got a cold from Jordan stressing out.
We were so close to going to Cleveland, and then I just couldn't pull the trigger on it. And it was me. Like, I exerted my feet in bricks, thing. Feet in bricks.
You exerted your feet in bricks thing?
I dragged my feet. I don't know. I was going to say like cement shoes.
You exerted your feet in bricks. Okay.
And I just couldn't make it happen. I didn't allow us to say yes. I wasn't living that improv style yes and lifestyle. I was like, no, but. And
feet
then
in bricks.
Feet in bricks. And then, like a week later, I found out we won for Birmingham, Alabama. Again, the time had passed for us to be able to buy those tickets. Thank God, because I think that would have been another stressful situation. But 2 weeks ago, you guys, we were driving to an appointment in Portland, and I look at my phone, and it says that we won 2 tickets for Broadway, the Mecca, the room where it happens. And I was like, I had promised myself, I never told Katie this, but I promised myself after the Cleveland debacle, if we were to win the Broadway tickets in New York, we would have to go. And so it set off a similar like feeling, like I had feet in bricks, but
Yeah, because it was not coming across that you were like, oh, we have to do this.
Because we won on a Thursday, and the performances were for that following Tuesday in Manhattan. And so, it's not.
And again, this is like this 2-hour window, but I think it was less than when you were like, when you found out. I just remember it was like so quick, and it was like, we need to decide immediately, yes or no. And I was like, I'm tired of buying the tickets and not going.
Oh, because we also won simultaneously, that same lottery drawing, we also won for Boston. But the Hamilton app has a quirk. When you open it, it goes alphabetically, but it used to always just have Broadway be the first. And so I accidentally bought Boston tickets too. So guys, we bought Hamilton lottery tickets 4 times. That's $80. 8 Hamiltons.
Really supporting the arts.
Yeah, with empty seats.
Yeah.
Haha. So we bought the tickets. And then it was like, we have to get plane tickets. And so then that was like another thing. It was like, you got these plane tickets, but when you're like 5 days out, it's really hard to find good tickets.
We had good tickets. Jordan means inexpensive.
I mean,
cheap tickets.
Yeah, the tickets we got were very good. There were direct flights at a reasonable time of the day.
Yeah.
But they were more expensive, twice as much.
They were an average price.
Yeah, but I like to
We've been very spoiled
Yeah.
and had really great deals.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, this is like a $10 ticket cross country.
You wish it was a $10 ticket. But at one point, to like offset the cost, I was like, okay, babe, we can fly into Philadelphia. We'll get in at 5 a.m. We'll wait for a train. We'll take the train from Philadelphia to New York City. We'll get there with just enough time. We'll have like 2 hours to drop our stuff off at the hotel, and then we'll go to the show.
But I love that idea because I love an adventure. I was like, ooh, we fly in, be in the city of brotherly love, check it out, have breakfast.
Lick the Liberty Bell, or whatever people do to the Liberty Bell.
That's always what they do.
Yeah, you lick the crack.
All right, lick the crack. Okay. Okay, so we didn't do that. We went direct flight, and it was good. We left on Monday. So, right, we bought the tickets on Thursday, packed our bags, left Monday, came back Friday.
So with all that said, that preface is this episode is a sequel to our original New York City episode, but this one we're specifically talking about Midtown Manhattan. Manhattan, people call it an island. I was like, that's not an island, that's a peninsula. And I, 20 minutes ago, I was looking on Google Maps, and I was like, what do you know? It's an island. It's got sea borders all around it.
Wow.
So yeah, it is just it's a goofy Long Island. I have no idea.
But not Long Island.
Also, okay, so New York City should not be a part of New York State.
It's crazy. You look on the map, it's way over.
It's this hangnail at the bottom of New York City. New York State in general is just this big triangle, and then you have this extra little wispy thing at the bottom. It should just be its own state. Washington, D.C. should just be its own state. Los Angeles should probably just be its own state. Puerto Rico should also be its own state. But
Was that your Puerto Rican accent?
Puerto Rico.
Wow.
It's not very good. It gets stuck in the mouth. But people in government, they got feet in bricks. So
True that.
can't do it. Manhattan is, again, this goofy island, but then in the middle, in the center, is Central Park, and it's this long rectangle in the middle, and then right under that is Midtown. Midtown encompasses Times Square, Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building,
Broadway.
and it's it's an interesting place, like Rockefeller Center. I wasn't jazzed about staying in Midtown. It was just this really busy, really kind of touristy area. But
I was pro because we hadn't stayed there before, and it was just like, if we're going to stay somewhere else, but because we planned on doing as many shows.
Why did we want to do so many shows?
Well, because also we found out it was Broadway week, which is half off Broadway tickets.
But not all the Broadway tickets. It was definitely like a select shows. It was like the majority of them. And so Broadway week is a misnomer.
And Jordan loves a deal, as we've established.
Yeah, he does. Well, Broadway week is a misnomer because maybe at some point it was 1 week, but now I think kind of post-pandemic it seems to have stretched out to be like 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so last year when we went to New York, it was also Broadway week. But the luck, I was like, this is like an act of providence. You know, we get these like Hamilton tickets and it's Broadway week, so we could just like jam pack this like 4-day trip to New York with as many shows. And so we ended up seeing 4 Broadway shows, including Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we ended up staying in Midtown. We found a pretty cheap place to stay, which I thought was kind of rare. You know, a lot of things were really expensive. They're all kind of bordering Times Square. It seemed like a nightmare. The place we got was only like $130 a night. And it was literally across the street from Grand Central Terminal, not Grand Central Station. And it was like the next building over from the Chrysler Building. So we had like one of the most beautiful buildings. I will take that back. I will say New York City's most beautiful building was out our window. Not the window of where we were staying. That led to a bunch of like pipes and stuff.
But on the 27th floor of our hotel, they had a 24-hour DIY espresso machine, which, you know, we were into. And yeah, out those windows was just a view of the Chrysler Building, and that was extravagant.
And it is such a beautiful building. You know, it has these like really fun geometric like shapes on it. I think it's like an Art Deco style, and it has these like lit triangles all around it. It's just a really gorgeous building. It is so much prettier than the Empire State Building. I think the Empire State Building is just kind of like, it looks like a Lego.
I think you are always putting down the Empire State Building. You just like don't have to say anything about it.
I used
Just
to love
if you
it.
have nothing to say, nothing nice to say.
Don't say anything at all.
So there was the Empire State Building, and we really loved looking at the Chrysler Building.
Sure did. One of the biggest surprises of our trip came with us wanting to experience these other architectural beauties and iconic areas of New York City that we never experienced before. So with that, we went to Grand Central Terminal the first day we got there, but we went there at like 10:30 at night, and we had walked in, and there's it was like so much more than just like a subway station. You know, it was very European in that way. Like there were restaurants, there were shops, there was like this giant kind of dated post office. It's in a beautiful building. And so when I was reading about it, it was like, do not call us Grand Central Station. We are Grand Central Terminal.
Perfect.
And it is in the Beaux Arts style. It opened in 1913. There was like this Beaux Arts movement. If I was more into architecture, I could tell you more about it. Hey, Greg Swift, what's Beaux Arts? Well, it's a similar style that's also the New York Public Library, the Stephen A. Schwartzman building, the flagship library that we went to. So that's also Beaux Arts. They opened a couple years apart. And so New York Public Library's flagship, Stephen A. Schwartzman building, opened in 1911, and Grand Central Terminal opened in 1913. And Grand Central Terminal, do you remember how many visitors a day Grand Central Terminal receives?
It was quite a bit. Was it like 600,000?
750,000. 750,000 people go through that expansive place a day. I can't imagine that. That's ridiculous.
We weren't there when it was bustling.
Intentionally.
But I mean, it was, I think I was expecting it to be nice. And I don't think our pictures really do it justice. I mean, like, it was and is extravagant. Like, it's very kind of take your breath away is how I felt walking in.
Oh, yeah, especially because we felt like we had the place to ourselves. I mean, there were like scragglers kind of around, but...
Yeah.
Describe the ceiling.
It is, I mean, what would we say? Aquamarine?
Yeah, turquoisey aquamarine. Yeah.
Like this beautiful shade. And then there's like gold. Not all of the signs.
There's like, it was very...
Some specific zodiac. Just the favorites. I don't know. Mine wasn't up there.
Well, it looked like Gemini, Cancer, maybe Taurus. I don't know. There was like astrological signs in that gold painting.
Yeah, that kind of spanned the whole way across the ceiling. And it was and there was like that white I don't even know what it is. Like pattern, not tile. I don't know. I don't even know what we're looking at. And there's like that iconic clock.
The four-faced
Information.
The four-faced clock. It was like I think it was like an opal clock or something. I don't know. It's apparently very iconic. And according to Grand Central Terminal, according to their website, oftentimes New Yorkers say, "Meet me at the clock."
Oh.
Yeah. So you and I could have met at the clock.
Well, we're not New Yorkers, so I guess we couldn't say that.
And then there was like so yeah, we just like kind of wandered around. I mean, again, this giant place was so
and those light fixtures, like those are really pretty, like walking in, like kind of hanging chandelier type.
Yeah. And there was so many of them.
Yeah. I mean, it was again extravagant. It felt like we were in Europe. It just didn't feel like we were in the United States.
I think that's like those old cities on the East Coast definitely have that feeling for sure. I mean, I would be very interested in going to like, downtown Philadelphia, Boston, these places, and just seeing like how the old country looks.
Yeah. I mean, I had read something about how, Paris and London were kind of the, like New York was competing with them and like surpassing in terms of like popularity and population and yeah, they wanted New York to be extravagant. I don't know.
I mean, we talked about this too. Like New York City is like one of those iconic world cities. It's on par with London, with Paris, with Tokyo, where it's like so multinational. Like you can walk the streets and be like, oh, I just heard like 8 different languages in the span of a block.
Yes.
And there's so much beauty to that.
And I just felt like when we were there, it's like, this is just like the people city, right? It's like whoever is there and you can feel welcomed by New York City. And it was good. It was a good vibe. I was really happy to see something we hadn't seen before. Just like there's like where we went here in like the library, there was like this like extravagant marble.
Yeah.
I wasn't anticipating either.
That marble facade of the New York Public Library's Stephen A. Schwartzman flagship building, ridiculous. And they have like the 2 lions out front. I think it was like Patience and Folly are their names. I don't think that's their names, but like those are the iconic lion statues. I was so impressed by the library. We had some time to kill, and I was like, let's do it. This sounds like a cool thing to do. And then I was so surprised to find out that they had like a museum in that building.
I mean, that was a fun surprise. And a free museum at that.
Right.
And
with legit things. Like it rivaled anything else that we'd seen. Obviously, it was smaller in size. But yeah, we walked in. The first thing that I saw was actually Winnie-the-Pooh. Like the 100-year-old stuffed animal that inspired A.A. Milne's books. Ridiculous. Winnie-the-Pooh was there. Tigger was there. Eeyore was there with the nail for a tail. Nail in the tail.
Nail in the tail.
Kanga was there. Roo, R.I.P., was lost forever to an apple orchard, according to the plaque.
And then there was little, tiny, creepy-looking Piglet.
And Piglet was so small. Like, all the other stuffed animals were like, they were, average-day plushie size. Mm-hmm. Piglet was like the size of my palm. And it just explains so much about, like, the Winnie-the-Pooh books, like, how the proportions of everybody. Mm-hmm. Piglet was so small and so worn out and kind of creepy.
Well, yeah, because Piglet's neurotic and he's afraid. And
Piglet looked like he was made out of pigskin. He looked like a football, and they, like, warped it into, like, the shape of a tiny little pig thing. It was frightening. Also, where was Rabbit? Was Rabbit someone that was thrown in? Was Rabbit not really a plushie? What was going on there?
Maybe. I had read when the library first opened, like they had stocked it with like over 1 million books.
Wow.
Anyway,
that's impressive.
Just wanted to throw that out there before I forgot.
The museum section also had like, the Bill of Rights was in there underneath this like gorgeous like glass slab. You could read it. I mean, it was kind of worn, but I mean, you were like, oh, that's the Bill of Rights.
I mean, as it should be.
Yeah, a couple hundred years old, a few hundred years old. And then handwritten a couple pages from George Washington's farewell address. And then there was like a letter that Thomas Jefferson had written to a friend being like, so I wrote the Declaration of Independence and here's what it contains. And it was weird because in that handwritten letter contained like anti-slavery sentiments, even though Thomas Jefferson was famously a slaver. So the plaque was like, we don't know why he wrote this. Weird times.
Wasn't that interesting, too, that you can hold those opinions, but you're not acting on it? Or it's like, oh, well, like, yeah, I know that it's wrong, or I don't think that this should continue, but it's like, I don't want to be inconvenienced, and I'm not going to change my ways.
Yeah, Monticello's benefiting from this, so.
It was like, right, like, oh, sure, I believe in reparations, but I don't want to pay it.
Yep.
You know, stuff like that.
Cute. And then they had a desk, like one of Charles Dickens' desks in there. But then there was also a weird thing from Charles Dickens. Apparently there was a beloved there was a beloved family cat, and they loved this cat. And upon its death, they're like, we got to keep a memento of this cat. So they took a paw of the cat and had it taxidermied and attached to a letter opener.
I mean, I think it's kind of sweet.
But then the gift shop was selling like models of the cat's paw letter opener.
Yeah, I mean, that was a choice. That was a choice to be like, haha.
I don't know if it was a ha-ha.
Not
I think
a ha-ha,
it was
but, you know, like, oh, you too can have a cat paw letter open. Which now I'm like, oh, why didn't we get that?
Regret.
They also had Rosa Parks.
They had some handwritten letters from Rosa Parks when she was, like, kind of detailing her, like, legal battle. And apparently she was, like, really involved with the NAACP. And I think the general historical knowledge that we are given by Rosa Parks, you know, it's very surface. It's like, she chose to sit at the front of the bus and not at the back. And
right.
It's like, it's so much more than that. And the curator did such a good job of like compiling this information and being like, no, this is like really who Rosa Parks was. And then really like, and this is just all sorts of things with the civil rights. Like, I think people intentionally make it black and white when they show footage or pictures from the civil rights movement to make it feel like it happened so much longer ago than it actually did. When you find out that Rosa Parks died in like the 2000s, you know, she was.
Yeah. I was surprised to learn that, and then was disappointed that I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, it's like this idea that it just happened so long ago, but it really didn't. You know, while our parents were alive. I mean, just this is weird. It's weird to think about.
There was a library curator or a librarian. She was giving like a tour, and she had curated this exhibit in that museum section, and it was almost in a response to a different section that kind of detailed like the origins of America. And so it was kind of like pushing back against that, like telling the other side of that story with more civil rights information, Black history information. I don't know if it's because it's Black History Month being February, but there was like a lot of really good information they compiled there from like civil rights movements. They had stuff from in response to like the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They had signs. They had one of the green books, that travel guide that detailed where it was safe for Black people to stay in the U.S.
And like travel to.
Yeah.
I mean, just whatever. Safety is important and something that is easy to take for granted. I really appreciated the library and all the different things that was offered in this museum. I mean, God, and they also had the first cookbook, supposedly.
Oh, the first cookbook in English. It was like, you know, written in Old English. It was interesting.
But I was going to say stone.
The Mesopotamia cuneiform.
Yes. It was pretty neat looking.
Yeah, some of the first languages written down in world history. But yeah, there were these like stone slabs that were kind of like trapezoidal, or one was a cone, and it was just like they were pictographs that had kind of evolved into a language, and it was like in schooling people had to like compile them. And obviously there are some ethical questions being raised why there's pieces from Mesopotamia in New York City. But it's still interesting for us to see. There was also like a first edition of Shakespeare's First Folio from like hundreds of years ago, where it compiled, you know, his first like, I don't know, 30 some plays. And that was cool to see. And it was in, you know, written vaguely Old English. So it was kind of like, you're like, oh, I think my brain's shutting off because like half these words make sense and half there's like an F in that letter.
Right. I'm not really sure what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you are in New York City, do yourself a favor, go check out the New York Public Library.
But the Stephen A. Schwartzman building, like, it was primarily being used as kind of like a research library, and so we didn't have access to all the rooms. I think that we could have gone to some, but it was like, you have to be quiet, no talking, this is for research purposes. So we couldn't, like, be a tourist and, like, gaggle around inside these rooms.
I felt like we could have said that we were researching something. Part of me wanted to, but yeah, it was a functional library. Things were happening, and we didn't need to go in there. But yeah, it definitely made me want to go to the library.
This trip to New York City, like, brought my soul back into my body. Like, I feel like I had been hibernating since the beginning of the pandemic. And especially that first full day in New York City, I feel like I came back to life. You know, I've been, like, slogging through it. I've been putting on a happy face. But I think that my cold, cold heart was melted, finally. I think that the first full day we had was, like, one of the best days I've ever had in my life. Like, it was just, like, it was so positive from beginning to end. We were promised to have a mini fridge in the room. And then if they didn't have a mini fridge, they would bring us one. And so I made our homemade granola, which accompanies us when we travel. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. That's fine. We had a bag of it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, and we'll get some yogurt and stock it in the fridge, and every morning we'll have it. They didn't have a mini fridge, and they weren't interested in finding me one. And I was like, but somebody told me. So instead, we just had to go find some yogurt every morning. So we'd go to Grand Central Terminal and get some yogurt. I would put some granola in a little paper cup. We'd go shopping, get our yogurt, and then we'd stand in the terminal. I'd pour some yogurt on, and we'd mix it.
But the first day, we, like, poured the granola on there, and then you're, like, trying to mix it, and it's like
such a hard time.
It's like, God, it's like there's it's like hard on top, and we're really sure what was going on. But apparently, I don't know, East Coast, there was like a paper blocking the yogurt. So
yes. That was exciting.
It was a cool moment.
Didn't ruin our day, though.
Nope.
So then we ate our yogurt, left, went walking, wanted to go find coffee, and then we saw a woman, like, casually standing outside a shop with, like, a metal tray piled high with breakfast burritos.
Yeah.
And she was saying how the next day was, like, their grand opening, and they were working on their burritos.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just giving them out for free. And so she just kept giving us burritos. But they were hilariously small. Like, I would say the size of, like, a hot dog plus bun.
Yeah. But maybe that's good. Less is more.
We went and sat on a rock and pounded 3 breakfast burritos and the yogurt and granola. Oh, man. And then we went to that coffee shop and had
I do want to say that we were going to, like, look for someone to, like, share the burritos with. Unfortunately, there wasn't anybody around.
Yeah.
And then we ate it. The end.
That's good. Clear your conscience.
Well, I just want to, like, point that out that, you know, it is good to share, like, in abundance.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously, we shared in other ways. Moving on.
We went and had some of the best latte art we've ever had in our life, which I was surprised, because I don't really think of New York City as, like, you know, a coffee mecca.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan from Halloween Town was our barista, and he was a delight. And he made us, like, this, like, lavender drink, and the latte art he drew was kind of like a lavender phoenix arising from the cup, and it was delightful. And we went and sat inside that little greenhouse they had outside, like, on the street.
Okay, I am all about, I mean, that's what I've taken away from the pandemic is, like, outside dining. I'm like, oh, just dining on the street in some capacity. I think in New York, we've seen it in New York more than anywhere else, but, like, little, they're insulated, kind of.
Some are just open air.
You know, but it's, like, to protect you a little bit from the elements. And yeah, it looked like a clear little greenhouse, like a little glass shack. And
it was plexiglass.
And the lady said we could go sit there, and I was so happy. And so we sat in there, and
just traffic goes by, enjoying your latte.
Mm-hmm.
You took some sexy pictures of me.
Yeah, it was good.
That sounds a little more sensual and erotic than I meant it.
It was.
It
was peak.
There I was taking off all my clothes inside the little plexiglass greenhouse for God and everyone to see.
Man, it was like the coffee was so good. We got another.
And then we had we were able to get tickets to a recording of a talk show. So we ended up going and seeing Late Night with Seth Meyers. Is that his show? Late Night? No, there's
I
so
think
many
so.
different ones. So I went to Seth Meyers, and we were like, I love Seth Meyers from his time as a writer for Saturday Night Live, but like I've never really gotten into his new show. But yeah, it was really positive. I mean, we had gone and seen like Jimmy Fallon like the year before, and so we had to go to like Rockefeller Center, and we were kind of, it's like a 3.5 hour process to go through it all, and so we kind of like shanghaied a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a commitment. It's like you got to show up, you got to wait in the line. It's like they got to check you in like 20 times. And it's like,
you literally, we get checked in, like, no joke, like 5 different times.
so they're like, let me see your tickets, let's see your ID, like whatever. And then once you're officially checked in, then they hold you captive in a room for like an hour, getting you ready.
And then, like, we had prepared for a much colder New York City than maybe what we got. Because the last time we went, it was freezing.
Yeah.
And so we had seen that it was going to be, like, pretty temperate, still colder than what we're used to. And so, we had packed our long underwear. We dressed in layers.
Right, I mean, it was like upper 30s, 40s.
Yeah. But, like, the weather, I mean, there was, like, it only rained once, and we'll get to that. But yeah, we were sitting in this, like, holding center, and I'm like, Katie, I'm too hot.
Yeah, no, it's like that long underwear.
So I like stumble into the bathroom, like slam myself into a stall, throw my pants off, take my shoes off, make sure I don't touch my socks under the bathroom floor, cause take my long underwear off. I use it as a scarf, put my pants back on, my shoes back on. I wad up the pants, put it in my pocket, and go on out. And then by then, I'd killed enough time that it was about time to line up and get ready to go to the show.
Yeah, but there's like music blaring in the bathroom, so you missed like entirely. As soon as you walked away, it's like one of the pages came over as like she was like a warm up. It was like, all right, are you like ready to see Seth Meyers? And it's like, oh, I can't hear you. And it's like, you have to like keep wooing and yelling, and like the people around me, it was like surround sound. I'm trying to like scribble and finish our postcard that we're gonna send my parents,
and we had to borrow a pen, and the pages were not gonna give us a pen because it was like, well, I'm not gonna write like I love Seth on my face, like I promise I just want to do a postcard. And they're like, are you sure? And I was like, yes. What?
So,
and they only gave us a red pen, which I thought was a little offensive. They had access to blue and black ink.
Well, probably, but they were like, well, if you do draw something,
yeah, we could edit it.
It's not going to show up as strongly.
That's true. So yeah, I missed all this because I was like, taking my pants off.
Yeah, then as soon as you walked away, then you came out of the bathroom. So I thought you were waiting.
No.
That timing.
Yeah. And then it was, it ended up being like a really great episode. I mean, we saw Reese Witherspoon, Paula Pell from Girls 5 Eva / was a writer from Saturday Night Live. Mm-hmm. Fred Armisen was the guest drummer, and there's a lot of Fred Armisen love because, did Portlandia, and which is just a delight. And then, yeah, Seth was really good. We saw Amber Ruffin, and so Amber Ruffin comes into play in this trip in a different way.
Yeah.
And Amber Ruffin, I think, needs to get more credit than she's probably getting right now in the late night sphere. And we noticed, too, the importance of lighting for people who are non-white.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, you get this person, and Amber, she looked so good, like, up on the stage, but then the way they were recording her, the lighting, like, something was just kind of off, and there's just, like, a bigger conversation with how to light people who aren't Caucasian.
Yeah. Nope. I was really happy that we went and saw, yeah, it was, like, a really interesting group of people that we got to see, and just a greater appreciation for what they were doing there. And then Seth came out, and he talked to the crowd for a really long time and was interested in asking all sorts of questions. Also, there was a ton of people from all over the world there. I mean, it was...
I would say half the audience was
I
not
was
from
say
the
that.
U.S.
Yeah.
Which is cool. The one thing about that day and that trip that I am regretting is that, he just kept asking questions, and I exist in abundance in that way. And I was like, I can participate. I've done these types of things. And I just let other people ask questions. And I was like, damn it. Like, why didn't I just like raise my hand and be like, hey, Seth, I'd love to work for you. Or just like take a big swing, a ridiculous shot. And I just clammed up. And I think part of it was because when we sat down in the theater, I was like, Katie, I'm saving myself for Hamilton tonight, so I'm hardly going to woo and I'm hardly going to clap. And I don't just, it set like a weird precedent. And so I was already like in a weird space, and I didn't expect Seth to come out and like really do a Q&A with the audience. And so I think I could have loaded up a question that could have been really clever. And he could have left being like, who was that charming young man?
I told Jordan he could write Seth and be like, hey, babe, I was there and I didn't ask you this.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things. No regrets. Because then I think after that moment, it was like, okay, we're going to be more yes and
more bold.
Yeah, it's like that there's nothing to lose here, only stuff to gain.
Right.
And yeah, and so that was like a little, because I think I walked away being like, oh, like, why didn't I encourage, like, I don't know, I felt very
well, we were also feeling sheepish because his warm-up comedian did a set last year, and afterwards I went and talked to him, and I was like, hey, do you have any advice for like a person who's like wanting to break into comedy? Like, what steps should I take? And he was very bitter about love. Maybe he's in a better space now, but he just kind of like sipped his drink, set it down. I don't even think he made eye contact. He just kind of went, well, getting married at 24 is probably your first mistake.
Yeah, I just feel like he didn't leave us with a warm and fuzzy feeling last year, and so that was kind of a downer to start Seth with that.
And so knowing that he was like in that room, it was like, well, I can't ask a cool question like that. And I think had that not been part of it, I think I probably could have been a little bolder. Anyway.
But see, that's a good lesson on not allowing other people to, I was going to say to like taint your experience, but like, yeah, and it's easier said than done of like not allowing other people to affect you.
Right.
But it's just, yeah, no.
So then afterwards, like it was almost time for Hamilton. So we went and ate at a nice little like Thai food restaurant in the area and had a really nice experience. And then
wait, really quick about the Thai food. I really liked it because every like area of Thailand was represented, and they were like, oh, we have food from like this section and that section. And as we know, we've spent time in Thailand, and so there was a lot going on, and it was a creative menu.
Right. And you got like an old fashioned that came with like some seared sticky rice to like, I don't know, it was like a garnish. I'm not sure what was going on there.
Yeah, it was like eat a little sticky rice, have a sip of an old fashioned. I just appreciated the creativity.
We went and pounded a cold brew after that. And then, you know, with these Hamilton tickets, we had to go to the will call. We had to go to the box office, show our ID, and so we can get our tickets. And so I have no idea where we're sitting. We go to will call. I give the ID, and the gal gives me 2 tickets. And on top of those tickets is a little tiny strip of paper that says, and I quote, this is caps. It was caps lock. It said, drinks are not permitted in front row. And I like I think my brain fries. I drool a little bit. I'm like, what does that mean? Where are we sitting?
Okay, brain fry and drool over here doesn't share that piece of paper with me. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I want to keep it a secret. Keep it safe.
So we go and we talk to the usher. We're like, oh, we don't know where we're sitting. Here's our tickets or something. And he just kind of like lights up and is like, oh, you don't know where you're sitting? And
we're like, nope, sure don't, mister.
So he takes us.
He escorts us all the way. He walks us all the way down to the stage. And I think we're going to go sit like, you know, stage right or something, like off to the side. We'll get a view of everyone's backside the whole time. He takes us to front row center, a little off center, but we are
just barely off.
Front row center for Hamilton. I feel like my heart explodes. I'm bleeding out in the aisle. I am so excited. Also a little nervous to be that close to live theater.
I was just like, yeah, it was unbelievable. I was like, God, is this like too close? Am I going to like, is this like a movie? Kill off my neck looking up.
Guess what? It's not like a movie at all. If you can, front row center, baby. It was the most immersive experience of my life, of any sort of theatrical production, whatever. I felt like I was there. I felt like I was on stage. I was like, you know, Aaron Burr's spitting on me. I'm like, yes, queen. I open my mouth, devour it. You know, King George came out to sing You'll Be Back, is making direct eye contact with us, maybe a little too much, and he does a little finger wave directly at us. And I know it's at us because I've been staring at him for the entire time. I do a little bow. I mean, I feel like everyone was making eye contact with us. The ensemble was like in our laps at times. I see people's tattoos. I see the sweat dripping from their faces as they finish a song. I can see like the like where their wigs are because it's
Yeah, I mean, it was so wonderful to feel like we were really a part of the show. And we were very engaging. I feel like we're laughing, we're crying.
In appropriate parts. Like we are being very, very good audience members. You know, we're not being inappropriate. We're not like calling out anybody. But I do think that we create this environment during live performances that encourages other people around us to also like participate and be really engaged with what's happening.
Right. And I think like to create a safe space, like it's okay to have a good time and it's okay to like participate in in an appropriate way. And yeah, we definitely had a great time. We were surrounded by a bunch of people that had all seen Hamilton on stage. And so we were like the only ones that hadn't. And
I think everyone was very supportive of us being in the front row. It was a good vibe. The people right next to me, like they had won Hamilton tickets, I think 6 months before. And so I'm like, I don't know if you should be getting these. You want to switch seats? But we were also so close that we could feel like the vibrations from the orchestra in the pit. It was like, whoa! And we could see like the conductor like pop out of the pit every now and then to like, he was conducting everyone. Clearly was doing it with both hands because a hand would pop up like a sock puppet, and he would be like, you know, cueing everybody. It was incredible. And I just think our energy, I think people need to understand with like live theater and performances that when you are giving your energy, like that is giving the performers something to feed off of. And you're being like, yes, we're here, we're buying in, do what you gotta do. And we got validation from this because after the show, we went out to the stage door and waited because we'd never done this on Broadway. But I was like, Katie, I want to like say hi to people because I felt like I'd made a connection with the cast.
Yeah. Well, okay, wait. So for people that don't know what a stage door is, because I didn't know this was a thing, but yeah, apparently after a show.
Well, it's the door that the cast and crew go in and out of. They don't go through the front door of the theater.
Right. That they leave. And I'm like, ooh, do we want to bother them? I don't know. But yeah, so apparently this is a thing that there's like the cool kids know that you can wait for actors to leave and maybe they'll come up and talk to you.
Yeah, well, Hamilton, like everyone was coming out with a Sharpie in their hand, so they knew that we were gonna.
Oh, they knew.
They were prepared to sign our playbills and chat with us, and oh my god! But before we talk more about that, I just want to talk about the immersiveness of that show some more. I mean, it was so powerful to be so close and to feel like there was nothing in between us and the stage because we had seen Book of Mormon from the orchestra, but you know, we had a ton of heads in the way. I don't know if the audience was like that jazzed that night, but for us to be standing there, like I was like overwhelmed with emotion at several times during the performance. Like Nick Walker, who's the current Aaron Burr on stage, which he's done in March, and so we're really thankful to have seen him.
I thought it was at the end of this month, but
okay,
yeah, so
maybe the end of this month.
And I'm pretty sure it's like a week left. Anyway,
he's incredible. But like when he went and said, "Wait," he sang his song "Wait for It." It was so powerful, and I was moved to tears like midway through that song. And it was the most powerful theatrical performance since the first show we had seen, Hello, Dolly, when the train came out during Put On Your Sunday Clothes. Like, I was crying during Wait For It. I cried when George Washington's character sang One Last Time. Crying then. And we also we thought he was an understudy for Hamilton because our playbill had a piece of paper that said, in this performance, Hamilton will be performed by. And we were like, I was excited because I was like, I love when an understudy's performing. But then he wasn't in the playbill at all.
No, and so when we tried to talk to him afterwards, and I didn't really understand what he meant, but so apparently he writes other musicals, but it almost sounds like he just participates, like he's like an emergency person, like that he can go and play any role.
But
randomly.
I don't even know if it was an emergency. I don't know. But yeah, he said that maybe he was one of the original cast that took over for the original cast. If that makes any sense. When a show's been going on for like 7 years, you have like different eras. Because our cast, there was exactly one person in the cast who was there with Lin-Manuel Miranda et al. And he was really good. And we saw him as he left. He was like pushing his bike and he's like, hey, thanks, guys. I was like, hey, thanks, guy.
He was the first person we saw. Yeah, we didn't see him at the stage door.
No.
He was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, so whatever Hamilton we saw, maybe he took over for the original cast member who played Hercules Mulligan / James Madison. Mm-hmm. I think that's who he said that he was. Yeah. And so I think he was just kind of like available. And so he was so jazzed coming out of that stage door. He was like recording a video. It was good. And he brought a really good energy as his performance of Hamilton. Because I think it worked too, because I think the crowd was really supportive of him on stage.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Moving on.
So we're waiting at the stage door, and then the first person we meet who's playing Eliza Schuyler Hamilton, and she was really positive. She was really pleasant. Chatted with her for a bit. Met someone who's in the ensemble, who we find out is maybe like the dance captain right now of the Hamilton ensemble. And then the guy who's playing Hercules Mulligan comes out. He sees you and I, and he just goes, "What up, front row?" And it was like, oh, God, you saw me? It was just like...
because you're like, oh, they have these like stage lights. They probably can't really see us. But yeah.
Oh, they can.
Oh, they all knew who we were.
Amazing.
And vice versa. So we're like, hey.
And then the guy who's playing John Lawrence / Philip Hamilton, he came up and he was just like, I think he was like really moved to be interacting with us also. He was like, oh my gosh, you guys, the tonight was like electric. There was electric out there.
The energy in the room. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, like it's not like this every night. And
his response was, you have no idea, sister.
Just validation that we can be magic and bring the energy. That's good.
And like help participate. And then there was these two. One was probably a little bit younger than us, and the other was maybe like a high schooler. And she had these like Hamilton Vans on. I don't know if she like doodled on them herself to make them look like they were Hamilton, or if they were like officially sanctioned items. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she really wanted the cast to sign her shoes, but she was like really nervous about that. But I think she ended up getting the guy who was playing Hamilton that night to sign her shoes. Mm-hmm. And then, everyone kind of petered out and left. And so we were like chatting with these two. And then they had left. And then we saw a guy leave.
Sneak out.
He snuck out. And we were like, is that Thomas Jefferson? I think it is. And so then we creeped. Like we kind of orbited as he's like staring at his phone. And then
I was like, whatever, I'm going for it.
So then we went and engaged. And so we met, was it like Kyle Scatfield or something? He's the one who's playing Lafayette / Thomas Jefferson. So we met him and his wife, and they were really pleasant. They were waiting for an Uber. And during curtain call, because again, I was like 5 feet from these people, I'm like crying, and I yell, thank you. And after that, we kind of gathered our stuff, but he told me that the cast said thank you back.
And we didn't hear it, but it was nice to it's nice to hear.
Yeah.
So be nice to your performers.
We were like so stimulated. Like Hamilton strung out for hours afterwards.
Yeah, I felt like really lightheaded. Like it was like we'd gone to this crazy concert. And because we did.
Yeah. They were so talented. I mean, oh my God. I mean, people say, like the most talented people in theater are on Broadway. And you're always kind of like, yeah, we know. Mm-hmm. But to see it and to see them in
to
action.
Feel it.
Yeah. Incredible.
It was incredible.
But those front row seats ruined us because we felt spoiled. We felt so spoiled that for the other 3 shows we went to, we had some of the best seats we've ever had on Broadway.
And they were nice, but it was like, oh, like this is good, but
I can see their expression, but I can't see their spittle in the light. I'm not in the splash zone right now, you guys.
Yeah.
So we ended up seeing Kimberly Akimbo, which is a new musical. I had read that it's referred to as a nerdical, like a nerdy musical.
Oh.
And it's about a woman who's got a disease that makes her age 4 times faster. And that was overall, it was like a really great show. It's hard to watch it. It was a hard act to follow with Hamilton.
Yes, because it was just completely different. I think all of the shows that we watched were really different. Like they were in their own category. It wasn't like we were watching 2 jukebox musicals or...
We didn't see any jukebox musicals.
Yeah.
It was good. It was very good. It was very funny. But then we met our seatmate, and she, like, her name's Nancy. And just that we were talking theater, and then eventually she's, like, telling us, like, where we should go grab a bite to eat afterwards. And then she's like, oh, well, actually, and pulls out 2, like, chocolate croissants. And she's like, actually, I bought these, but you should have them. And we're like, no, Nancy.
Yeah, because she was like, oh, you should go here. And she was like, no, just have this. This is the best thing from there. And anyway, they were good.
And then
so that day, we decided to do 2 shows in one day. And it was like, is that too much? Like, should we not do that? It was like, we're here. Again, that's what this trip was about, was kind of squeezing in as much live theater as we could.
Ugh, it was such a good squeeze.
And is this the day we went to the zoo? No.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
What a day.
What a day. We went to the Central Park Zoo.
But as we were going to the Central Park Zoo, like we were waiting on like the southeast corner of Central Park, waiting to cross, and there was like a bus at a stoplight, and this like way too fancy black car like squeezes in between like a metal gate and this bus with probably an inch to spare. If that, like, I was like, I don't think I could get a piece of paper between that car and this fence or gate.
Yeah.
So impressive driving, but maybe aggressive driving. I mean, they saved like 7 seconds.
Well, you know.
Yeah, New York driving. But the New York, I mean, it was nice to be at Central Park when it wasn't snowing, because that was the first time it wasn't like iced over when we were there.
Yeah, and it was like really pretty, green. People were out.
Green enough. I mean, it was still winter.
Well, right. But it was really nice and enjoyable. Saw some nice animals, but whatever.
Like red pandas and a snow leopard. And they had 2 red pandas, and they gave me life. I loved them so much.
I feel like I had to pry you away from the red pandas.
They were so cute. Come to find out, though, that they are more genetically related to a raccoon, which obviously...
And that's why they're so cute.
Yeah. Aww. And then, so yeah, we saw the 2 shows. And so after we saw Kimberly Akimbo, we went and saw a new play, Pictures from Home, with like a star-studded cast. I mean, there's only 3 people in it. But the big draw for us to see Pictures of Home was to see
Nathan Lane.
My best friend, Nathan Lane, who, if you don't know, he's the voice of Timon, and he is...
Timon in The Lion King.
And he is Albert in The Birdcage, and he just is... a treat on Broadway.
Yeah, it was really nice to see his energy. I mean, they were all very charismatic and did a great job. And I think, because we weren't sure if we were going to see this, because it wasn't a musical, it was a play.
Kind of like a serious premise for a play.
Yes. But overall, we were really happy we went and saw that. And then somehow we ended up sitting behind the same couple that we sat behind at the show earlier, Kimberly Akimbo, and they like turned around and were like, oh, you were sitting like right behind us in the last play or the last show. And I mean, what are the odds? There has to be like hundreds of people.
Hilarious. And I think like this trip was just, we had connected with so many people, and there was this thing of like, you know, I was being very cognizant of like asking people's names, like just trying to like step out of my own comfort zone a little bit and like really feel like I was connecting with someone really quick, versus being like, hey, let's connect on social media. I mean, we left the door open for that for some people, but just to be like, we're here sharing this moment together. And it was nice.
Like living more in the present moment than like in the future, and like, right. This like, oh yeah, sure. What's your social media? Or like, oh, hey, hi and bye person. And yeah, that was nice.
And then we had a couple instances between waiting for our 2 shows. So we went and got a coffee and got some food. But in between there, we went to a coffee shop right after we saw our matinee. And we're enjoying our coffee. And then this couple walk in. And Katie's like, I think that's the girl we met last night after Hamilton, who's in the ensemble. And lo and behold, it was. And she was with a guy who was a swing and an understudy in Hamilton. And so she had remembered we were from Oregon and won the lottery, came all the way out here.
So she introduced us to him, and then lo and behold, he was from Seattle.
Yeah, we just had like a really lovely conversation with them. And it was so powerful for me to be like, oh my God, I'm here casually chatting with Broadway stars in a coffee shop in, in the theater district of New York City. Something that I never thought I would do. Or that I was capable of doing. And so to be like, oh, all these people are just people and they're willing to talk with you. It was really good for me. It was healing.
They're kind and just people. And I think that's, where it doesn't feel so like this untouchable, the untouchables. But I saw on social media that she played Peggy the other night.
Oh, good for her. And Peggy. Oh, Mariah Reynolds.
Oh my God. All right.
Say no to this. No. And then afterwards, we were walking around just, that Midtown area. And we were walking right behind this girl. And something happened. And her AirPod Pro fell out of her head. And I watched it bounce several times in the streets of New York
out of her head?
Well, yeah, that's where they go. They go in the head.
Her ear?
Yeah, which is connected to the head.
All right, out of her head.
Out of her head.
Okay, it fell
Maybe
out of her head.
Maybe it was in her nose. I don't know. It fell, bounced. She bent over to grab it, and then it fell right into a hole in a manhole cover, right into the New York City sewers, where it will be used by a Ninja Turtle, probably Michelangelo. And the girl just stood up, completely crestfallen, and I turned and looked at her and said, hey, I just saw what happened and I am so sorry. And she just went, they were new. And a part of me was like, should we go buy you another one? Like, here's a couple $100, like, please.
I feel like because I did not see it happen, so I was like,
I watched the whole episode unfold, babe. And
I think that you were very, I feel like she felt supported in that moment. But yeah, it was she was distraught a little bit, I think.
I feel like I would also be distraught. I mean,
yeah, it's tough. It's first world problems, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So after we saw the show, the Pictures from Home was in Studio 54, which I think is a newer theater. It's kind of outside the theater district a little bit. But afterwards, we were like, oh, we'll take a chance. We'll go hang out the stage door again. There was 7 people waiting. So I think it maybe was well known that maybe this wasn't the crew that would hang out with you, because they're all 2 of them are Tony winners. One's won a bunch of stuff also.
And it was the night before opening night. I mean, if it were me, I would want to go rest up and...
Well, totally. But we're waiting. And so obviously the main draw was for us to meet Nathan Lane. And so one of the security guard guys, he's like, dude, Nathan Lane's like a ghost, man. Never sees him. He's in and out. So it was kind of insane. And so we waited. And while we were waiting, one of the guys, he turned around and he kind of gave me a double take. And then finally was like, oh my God, I thought you were Josh Groban, who is going to be in a Sweeney Todd revival at the end of the month. And so a part of me was like, should I lean into it and be like, yeah, I am Josh Groban, or be like, hey, come see me on Broadway in a couple weeks. But it's weird because this is the not the first time that I've been mistaken for Josh Groban, and that makes me very happy.
Yeah, people are all about it. One gal at the local Tillamook County Fair, she was working a booth and she was convinced that Jordan was Josh Groban.
Oh, and I loved it. Ate it up.
Yeah, she asked, was like, are you that guy that's the singer? And then Jordan's like, Josh Groban? She's like, yeah. He's like, no. And she's like, but she didn't believe him.
Yeah.
And then she kind of leaned in and was like, but are you?
And maybe it's just because I have white glasses, kind of cool, kind of different, like maybe. Josh Groban would wear. But now I just need to start being like, you raise me up.
I know. We should have found Josh on the streets of New York. And you guys could have connected.
I know. Nathan Lane does show up. He is like a ghost. He goes right to like a black tinted window car that has been waiting. Like it is like specially parked on the streets of New York for him to like basically run out.
Yes. He goes as he opens the door, or as the doors open for him.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not sure. Probably. He turns towards the seven of us, lifts up an arm, kind of gives us a quick little wave,
But doesn't say anything.
smiles, and then gets it. And away he goes.
But I yell like, "Thank you, Nathan Lane. Break a leg tomorrow." And he says, "Thank you." He
That's
gets in
right.
the car. And it's kind of awkward, but it's good, you know.
Yeah.
But Katie was like, you know, maybe he just doesn't like small talk, which, yeah, screw that.
You know, I could only imagine the type of interactions you can have in that setting, in everyone's different mental space. And, you know, as a person who takes on other people's stuff, I could see that could be a lot.
So then we went back to our place. We walked through the dystopian hellscape of Times Square, which is the busiest we've ever seen it. Like Times Square, I mean, you see pictures, you hear stories about how busy it is, and we've never seen that because obviously we went at the, you know, endish part of COVID pandemic, and then we went when it was like freezing cold, and so there weren't a lot of people there. But this trip, I feel like Times Square was a hot spot. Ton of people at all hours of the day, because like we would get out of these shows like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and then walk through Times Square and be like, there's still a ton of people out. And so we keep walking past like these like wave after wave of kind of like obnoxious teenage girls. And then eventually I feel like my leg gives out because someone has whipped the back of my leg with something. Like it is like a stinging whip. And I don't know if they were walking like, hey, dare you to whip that white guy in the leg. And so like my leg gives out as we're walking.
I don't know. It's like, right, we're walking together. All of a sudden I kind of feel Jordan like like his leg gives out.
Help me.
And he like has an issue, but then doesn't say anything, and we just keep walking. And then like a minute later, you're like, someone just like whipped my leg or something. These people are long gone. So like, I don't know. Anyway, Times Square.
And so our last full day in New York City, we just kind of like walked around, went to like the Flatiron Building, which is that like, as the name implies, like a flat kind of triangular-ish shape building that's on like the National Register of Historic Places. I've got a thing for touching things, so we went and touched the Flatiron Building. It's beautiful and ornate.
Yeah.
We go through Madison Square Park, where they have like a roaming sculpture exhibit right now from a Pakistani artist. It was called like Hava, it means things like breathe, air, and like different like Urdu, Arabic languages. And it was this big, beautiful statue of a woman who had braided hair in the shape of like a ram's horns. And then the end of her arms and legs turned into like roots. And it was like just a really beautiful, like gigantic statue.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. And then I feel like we were looking up and like noticing all these like gold roofs.
Like gold tipped buildings in New York City.
Yeah, I was like, what's happening here?
Weirdos.
It was really nice to walk so much. And I think just because it wasn't freezing, like this is our first trip to New York where we weren't on the subway all the time. We only took it once. And yeah, it was good. It was nice.
Definitely gives you, we got more connective tissue for New York City because our very first trip, it was just like, pop out of the subway, see something, go back into the subway, go to some other part of the city. And so, you know, when you do that, you're not necessarily seeing the whole picture. You're just kind of seeing like, you know, a greatest hits. And it was really nice to just like see how the city kind of evolves with every block and every street that you're on.
Totally.
But then that night we went to go see a new musical based off of the 1950s movie, Some Like It Hot, which at some point I think had been a musical because Tillamook High School did it a couple years before we were in high school.
Hasn't everything been a musical?
Well, I feel like Top Gun has yet to be a musical.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No. Okay, Some Like It Hot. I was really excited to see it.
Yeah.
And
because we watched it a couple years ago.
Right. It has like Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon, and you know, it was good. It was fun. We enjoyed it. And I was happy they were doing a remix. What do you call it?
It was definitely a more progressive, inclusive reinterpretation of the original material. Because in the original movie, pretty much the whole cast is white.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought on Amber Ruffin, who we just talked about, who's like one of the writers on Seth Meyers. She has her own show on Peacock. Hey, NBC, you want to sponsor us?
Oh, my God.
So Amber Ruffin helped write this redo, this reimagining. And so they set it a little bit earlier in time. So it's during Prohibition. But then they also wrote the music and the book with help from like the guys who did Hairspray, the Hairspray musical. And so they codified that pretty much half the cast is black.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so important to not just like, you know, there is beauty in like race blind casting, but there's also beauty in codifying a story and being like, this character has to be black because the book and the music requires it.
Well, God, you remember a couple years ago, I think we had read something about Book of Mormon and how maybe those actors were not super into the roles that they had to play. And yeah, I just think like just moving forward, we're going to see hopefully more of that. And yeah, from that time period, it's not like it was just white people, even though that has been what has been depicted in these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was good. It was just like takes place during Prohibition. And there's just to shed light on other people's experiences and that it wasn't the same. And yeah, and I feel like they weren't dwelling on it, but it was just, we weren't ignoring it.
And the character, I think it's Jack Lemmon's character, they make that, not only that character is black, but also trans. And so the premise of the show is like two guys witness like a mob hit gone wrong. And so then they have to go on the run. But to go on the run, they dress in drag and join an all-women's like band. And obviously that premise becomes more problematic the more progressive our society gets. But I think they took this problematic premise and modernized it. And I thought it was really good. Obviously, I'm not a member of the LGBTQ plus community. I'm not trans. I'm not black. But I felt like it was very inclusive from my perspective.
Right. And
progressive. And beautiful. Like, it was a beautiful love story.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you have the opportunity to see that one, that's
And God, it was so funny.
It was funny. It was quick. It was there's a lot of dancing. There's a lot of fun numbers. There's some tap routines.
A lot of love, a lot of joy, a lot of humor.
Yes.
It was just like one of those classic, like, big, fun, classic big band musicals.
Yes. So I was like really happy to see that. We were sitting next to some, I called it like the retirement section. Like we were like our row. But I mean, I feel like I was like amongst my people.
Oh, yeah. And afterwards, and again, this happened again, like the people that were sitting next to you, like afterwards, they were just like, they had such a good time. They said that we helped make the show for them just because we brought so much good energy. But I think we inspired people a couple rows behind us to get a little too rowdy in Act 2.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. There was also a lot of students at some of the shows that we saw. So I think maybe because it was Broadway week, like they were taking like school field trips or something. Because yeah, there was like, I don't know, something was going on a couple rows back and it was like, this is inappropriate.
I need you to shut up. I just need you to shut your mouth right now. I know we're excited.
But yeah, so then afterwards, like the two people that were next to us, they're like, oh my gosh, like your energy was so great. And I do think that we encouraged, particularly that audience, because I think they were kind of a little like shy at the beginning. I think our enthusiasm really like spread because we were kind of like in the middle of the first mezzanine. So we had these like really amazing seats. Not front row, but...
No, but really nice seats. And like, I don't know that we've ever been that center.
Yeah, it was awesome. But then afterwards, that couple was like, oh my gosh, are you guys like theater students? Like, I think they were really impressed by our energy. And it'd been a long time since someone had asked me if I was like in the arts in that capacity.
Yes.
And it was nice.
It was nice. We had a nice dialogue with them.
And I think there was some good thematic things that were happening with like specifically that show that we saw, because our very first Broadway show was Hello Dolly in that same theater with Bette Midler, David Hyde Pierce. And we had like super nosebleed seats. But again, still, even if it's a nosebleed seat in a Broadway theater, like you can still see everybody emote on stage. Like you can see their eyes. And then this was our 10th Broadway show, which is
wow.
crazy to say. 10th Broadway show, same theater. And so it was a good like bookend for this like
And our 10-year anniversary.
oh my god.
My god.
How nice. 10 years.
Congratulations.
10 years, 10 Broadway shows, 10 fingers, 10 toes.
So far.
So far, so good. So, right, we just had a lovely time. The next day, we kind of putzed around more. But then when it came time to leave, we'd given ourselves enough time to like leave comfortably. And so we got on our Lyft app, plugged in our place to Newark Airport, which was like 11 miles. And it had quoted us $100 for that ride.
And we don't play that. So we quickly decided to grab the luggage, which we have never taken, a rolly suitcase, a large rolly suitcase, just one. I don't know that we've ever really taken it on a trip. I mean, maybe once or twice.
Yep.
But yeah, and then we proceed to run to Grand Central Terminal, and it is a very tricky, complicated, a lot of trains, a lot of running, a lot of like left, right, up the stairs. We have like a 2-minute grace period, like we can't mess up the route, and to make it to New Jersey, to Newark Airport.
It was in itself a farce because, right, we find out it's going to be $100. We immediately just grab our bags and run.
Right.
Run right across the street to the terminal. And we have to, get ourselves in. There's obviously not a ramp or an escalator where we go in. So I'm like kicking the bag as I'm holding it down this flight of stairs. And at one point I'm like, what's going to happen is I'm going to like snag my foot and I'm going to fall down these stairs and I'm going to get back up and keep going. But then I scan us in through the turnstile, but I thought the bag could roll under the turnstile. It doesn't. It fits, but not enough to move the turnstile. So it's like stuck. I'm stuck. I'm like kicking it and shoving it. Katie goes through. She's like pulling it. Finally, we both go through the turnstile. I like throw myself over. We have to go down several other flights of stairs. I'm, again, kicking and carrying this giant bag that's, I think, filled with like 50 pounds worth of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to hit the subway. We get the correct train. We have to change trains at another station, like Penn Station. So then we move, we go to another one, and then we have to take that to wherever, to another place. And we had to get tickets to New Jersey.
I think we'd like keep running. I just remember we were like going, I don't know. I mean, like there's so many different, if you haven't been.
It's a labyrinth.
Right. If you haven't been and used the New York subway transportation, I mean, yeah, it is a labyrinth. There's like so many different routes. It is. And the signage is good, but it's not great if you're not super confident. And for us, like I feel like
you're not familiar with what those things mean. You're like, Hudson Yards? What does that mean?
Right. It was like, are we going the right direction? Because, trains are going one way, so you could go the correct way or the opposite direction that you don't want to go. And I just feel like you and I couldn't even have a dialogue because you were so stressed about trying to make sure that we were getting on the right thing.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I just remember, like, we finally make it to what we think where we need to be to buy a ticket to New Jersey.
And there's a line, and everyone's taking forever. And so then there was, like, another bay of ticket boxes, we assumed.
Yeah, but nobody was using it. And I was like, I think these are open, and, like, we can use it. And so, and again, this is, like, the clock's ticking. When you're, like, down to, like, 30 seconds. Gotta, like, hurry up.
I'm like, process this payment!
So we get some ticket, we run down the stairs, and we like get on.
But we get turned around because it's like, there's platform 3 and platform 4. Platform 3 is what we needed. We didn't need platform 4. So we have trains on either side, but we've gotten turned around. So I'm like, I don't know which train to take. I see that one train says like NYC. I'm like, we probably shouldn't get on that one. Mm-hmm. Get on the other train. I feel like as the doors are closing.
Mm-hmm. And our tickets are pink, and that's fun.
And so's the inside of that train.
Yeah, there's like some pink accents and like a guy, and it did feel
like a conductor,
kind of like old fashioned. He's like coming through, and he's got his like hole puncher, and it's like punching our tickets. It's like, what's going on here?
And he comes by. I am sweating my ass off. Mm-hmm. Like I've sweated through my shirt, and it's going into the next shirt because again, it was like 55 degrees that day, which on the Oregon coast is a hot summer day.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is like it was like so hot in New York.
And so he's coming by, and I'm like, "Are we on the correct train, sir?" And he kisses me gently on the lips and says, "You're on the right path."
Wow.
So we were on the correct train. But
And
then
that's how Jordan got COVID.
And that's how I got COVID. It spit right in my mouth. I thought it was going to be from Aaron Burr spitting in my mouth, but it was from the conductor. So we get to the Newark terminal station. We're still not to the airport. We got like an hour and a half left. Like the clock is ticking. We're no longer at the airport with 2 hours to spare. We have to get to the airport. And so we have to take a monorail. Monorails are coming from either side. I think Newark Airport is having some construction done. And
or
so
maybe they just expanded or something.
Yeah, who knows? I think they built a new terminal.
Yes.
There's some employees working that monorail station. Nobody seems to know what the correct train is. Literally, there is a sign that says "use other train" when a train comes, and the doors are open for a while. And then
like no one's getting on. And then I feel like at the last minute, she's like, "Oh yeah, like you guys could take that train."
It was kind of like an emergency. I feel like the employees got on two, and they're like, "We got to take this one," and so everyone like starts to go, but all the doors have closed except one door, which is closed on a person, and so this person is stuck between the platform and the train. The door's eating them alive. They push it back, and I use that opportunity to like throw my bag on, my wife on, and then I get on as the door eats me, so I'm being eaten. I push the door back, get on the monorail, and then as it goes, we like see that it's going to a parking structure.
Right, we're going the opposite direction.
We're like, "You son of a bitch! You ruined it!"
We're like gonna miss our flight back home. Anyway, so we take the long way. We're going through the parking lot. Eventually, we do make it to the terminal that we need to be at.
I think we were on the right train. We ended up getting there. But it was very confusing. Made no sense at all.
And, like, nobody knew. Like, I mean, in our little, like, compartment, yeah, no one knew if we were going the right way.
Yeah,
everyone's like, I don't know what's going on.
And then we finally make it. We get through security. Thank God. There's no hassle. We're good to go.
I feel like we have, I don't know, 15 minutes to spare. It's
yeah.
Go to the bathroom. I run into somebody from Tillamook that
Someone
I know.
you grew up with.
Yeah, in the bathroom. I'm like, God, that looks like Alyssa. And it was.
Small world, man. Can't take you anywhere.
That's right.
Well.
So that was
last week.
That was last week. Midtown.
What a turnaround.
What a time.
So any like big takeaways, like big picture takeaways from this trip?
It felt really good to say yes. And to, like, yes, we spent more money than I wanted to, but it's like, what are we holding on to it for? You know?
Well, I'm being Scrooge McDuck. I'd like to swim in it one day.
I think, I mean, there's not that much, but just that idea of like saying yes and having those experiences. And had we said no, to just think of what we would have missed out on, and we wouldn't have known it. But right, I mean, like what you were saying, just like the best that you felt in 3 years, and like you wouldn't have had that experience if we hadn't said yes. And it was so positive, and it felt so good to really feel like we were really out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Hamilton, I mean, I hate to say it. Yeah, it was mind blowing, you know, because I just feel like everyone's like, oh my God, Hamilton.
Lived up to the hype, man.
I know.
We didn't throw away our shot.
No.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I mean, it's, you know, I love when you're right. And I know that you're right most of the time, but I've got feet for bricks for feet. And yeah, it's my sense of love for life, my desire to travel, to interact with people, just straight up atrophied with the pandemic. And I just remember a few months into the pandemic, like I just feel like I went on a nosedive. I was like, my life's over and I'm 30. And to come back out on the other side, and yeah, there are scars and there's trauma from the past few years, but to feel like I kind of came out of a cryogenic slumber, and that I can like interact with the world again, and that there are good people and things were positive. And yeah, I'm not proud of it, but we didn't wear a mask for, I'm going to say 90% of that trip, in packed theaters, getting spit on by King George himself. And it felt good, you know, to like feel like a sense of normalcy, but a different type of normalcy. New world normalcy. And it is hard for me to still say yes to some things, but it felt so good to say yes to this and to see what could happen when you just take a chance.
Yeah.
Big regret, though. Still haven't gotten to MoMA.
Next time.
Next time, we'll finally go to Museum of Modern Art and ice skate, because we still haven't done that because we didn't want to, jeopardize this trip in particular by breaking our shit on the ice.
I feel like it was dangerous. When we got home, it was like we had done an international trip, and it felt like we were gone a lot longer, super jet lagged, just exhausted.
It felt like, and I don't want to say this about just going to a trip to New York, but it did feel life changing for me. It felt like, in a way, it saved my life,
Why do you think that was?
I just think seeing live theater, feeling seen by live theater, which is a really weird thing to say, but just feeling I was right there.
In the room where it happened?
And just being out in the world and engaging with people and talking with people. And
I think we've learned that isolation isn't...
It's not great.
It's not great. And then to think about how many people... the fact that you have survived the past few years and so many people have not. Yeah. And I think as a society, we just brush over the pandemic what pandemic and what trauma? It's nope, everything's good and everything is not good. And to think about, if you're listening to this and you're struggling, just that you are not alone in that, and that things have been hard and difficult, and maybe it wasn't that difficult for you, but maybe somebody close to you and you just don't know it. Because Jordan's really good at putting on a really great face.
Thanks.
And to have it be real is wonderful, and that just gonna continue pushing forward, and that just one day at a time.
And obviously taking a sporadic, ridiculous trip isn't the remedy for everybody, but for us it was the remedy, for me in particular. And so I didn't know that we were going to come back from New York City feeling absolutely replenished. And I think people often don't know what the end result of an action is going to be unless they do it. And so if there's something you want to do, regardless of how ridiculous it seems, I encourage you to do it and see how you feel afterwards. Because we have taken a couple trips during the pandemic, and nothing has felt so satisfying as the one we just had. And we didn't expect that.
I think that's definitely true.
And it was just us being true to our desires. And, we made it our thesis for the trip was fairly simple. Go indulge as much live theater as possible. And we did.
Okay, well, if you just listen to yourself, what's your next thing? What's a desire that you want?
Oh, probably write.
That you are going to say yes to.
Write a book. Maybe be cool.
Yeah, really cool.
This is difficult.
Okay, let's doing the work. Well, thanks for taking me to New York.
Thank you for taking me to New York. And you're welcome for those tickets, because I want them.
All right. Let's talk next week.
You want to do this again next week?
I am open to doing it next week.
Okay, yeah, let's do it, man.
Okay, I would like to go to Newport, Oregon.
You want to take me to the Seafood and Wine Festival?
No.
Why?
I'll tell you about it next week.
Oh, no. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this. And as always, we really appreciate your support. And I am sending you just all the good vibes.
Aww.
I want to be in the room where it happened.
The room where it happened.
The room where it happened. 3, 2, 1.
We didn't talk about the Jellicle duck.
Oh my god. The dog.
The dog that was like a member of Cats.
There was a man walking a dog. I assume it was like a big dog, but a puppy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like looking at me. I'm looking at it. And then it just like freaking lunges at me.
2 paws in the air. It wants a hug.
And the guy like yanks him back.
And it moved the way the member of Cats do in the musical Cats. They're just like,
Maybe he wanted to be in Cats.